Gas in the car, check. Tent, check. Sleeping bag, dog, spare tire, check, check, check. Water. The modern food system is changing faster than it has since the Industrial Revolution. And I'm telling these stories so that we all understand how complex our food culture is, so that when the next big revolution comes, we're ready to rewrite the rules and finally make something that future generations can be proud of. As you probably already know, I am about to start a cross-country road trip so that I can film and broadcast stories about food. And that all starts at home in Washington, D.C. The thing that you need to know about D.C. is that it is simultaneously the most ignorant and the most highly qualified place that I've ever been in my entire life. In D.C., there are so many very, very educated people with resumes so good that they can actually deflect bullets, and yet these same people are voting on issues like agriculture and food policy and environmental policy when they've never moved irrigation to try to conserve water and reduce runoff, or slaughtered a chicken, or helped bring a baby lamb into the world. And I know that's not exactly how it works. They study and learn the law, and they vote on behalf of their constituency, or so we hope. But they also form committees, like agricultural committees, and how do they know if they want to be on or off of that committee if they themselves have never experienced anything more agricultural than a pumpkin patch at Halloween? But that's DC in a nutshell. It's full of experts who exercise their authority and their power far outside of the parameters of their expertise. Which is why I would argue DC lawmakers don't matter so much. The constituency does. Me and you. And I'm happy that you chose to come along with me on these road trips to learn more about food and farming, because we do have a lot to learn if we're going to have a positive impact as voters and consumers. But if we're talking about food, farming, and agriculture, there is only one place that we can start, and that is by talking about water. Just before this road trip, I went weeks without clean drinking water in my house because the city was replacing the pipes. I had to carry my water from the grocery store, which is a little bit over a mile. My housemates and I might have been ingesting lead for years, and we don't know because communication wasn't that great. Even after they finished construction, I don't think anybody ran a test, or if they did, they didn't tell us the results. It was kind of a scary time for us, but it also helped to drive home how serious the Flint water crisis is.
Born and raised in Flint. I'm about 10 minutes outside of Flint.
Okay.
My entire family still lives.
Okay.
I believe it's real messed up, first of all. Governor Snyder should be arrested. He poisoned the water, which had me suffering for 2 years. I'm still suffering now.
Go through extra catastrophe with water.
Wow.
The Flint water crisis is huge. There are a lot of people who definitely have been ingesting lead for years. Flint was struggling with this before I left on my road trip, and it is still going on. Here's something else. If you're going to talk about people's right to have access to drinking water, you can't not talk about clean waterways and rivers. That brings us to another huge story right now, the Dakota Access Pipeline and its brother pipelines.
So we must go out there, our children, our land. We must go and protect our future, our children, our land, our water. That's why we're all here today. That's why we left our homes behind.
We have activists and lobbyists coming from Flint, Michigan, and also the Standing Rock Sioux tribe. And all they want to do is raise awareness about their right to clean drinking water. At the same time, because this is the nation's capital, we also have Black Lives Matter activists and women's rights activists, all here. What I'm starting to see is that so many people are beginning to understand that you have no human rights without the right to water. It has become a central issue in these communities, and for good reason. So a good question to ask, I think, why do these news stories come and go so quickly? Why is it that unequal access to drinking water isn't a part of the national dialogue more often, daily even, until this problem goes away? And I think the answer is that Most of us lack the experience. Most of us have never gone without access to water. And that makes these crises, like what's going on in Flint, Michigan, or at Standing Rock, almost impossible for us to really invest in. Because, truth be told, we have a really hard time empathizing. In DC, right before this road trip started, I'm having to haul gallons of water from the grocery store. Nobody offers to reimburse you. Nobody really gave us a lot of information about the process at all. They certainly didn't direct us to any kind of public resource for drinking water. And are there even public resources for drinking water in the city? I don't know. Part of that ignorance stems from the fact that I grew up someplace where clean, fresh drinking water was plentiful. The operative word in that sentence, unfortunately, is was. The first thing that I needed to do before I started this cross-country road trip was pick up the Jeep, which was waiting for me near my hometown of Rutledge, Tennessee. Rutledge didn't have much, but what it did have was clean water, and a lot of it. But again, that's past tense. Now things look much different. Let me just show you. All of that clean and plentiful water was coming from mountain springs and from spring houses, but due to expensive private trash service, non-existent environmental outreach in the area, and basically poor management from the county and state, all of those waterways are now plugged up with garbage. That water is foul and undrinkable, and those spring houses are almost entirely abandoned. So where does my family get water now? They get it from a well, if they're lucky, or they'll get it from the city, if they trust the city, and more often than not, I think they get it from the grocery store. So drinking water has become a grocery. And if that isn't ridiculous enough, how about this little taste of irony? Probably about half of the garbage that I found in those mountain springs when I went home was made up of water bottles and water jugs. So why am I jumping from Flint to Standing Rock to Rutledge, Tennessee? My reasoning is very sound here, and that's just to point out that clean drinking water is a byproduct of a healthy ecosystem. When I was growing up in Rutledge, Tennessee, that ecosystem was healthy. Now, the southern Appalachian ecosystem has changed that dramatically. Public water utilities are vital because they keep water clean and they keep it available. Only, I think that people sometimes forget these water utilities don't create water, they don't fabricate it, they just move it and treat it. The USA is full of clean drinking water, and yet so many of us take it for granted and have taken it for granted for so long that we lose respect for it. And what follows is a decline in water quality, which is evident from Flint to my hometown in Rutledge, Tennessee. Now, water is one of the farmer's holy trinity: water, sun, and loamy compost. So as you begin this journey with me, road tripping across the country to learn about food, you can't forget, water is life. We have nothing without it. And honestly, it deserves your attention, and it deserves our respect, and it definitely deserves every minute it gets on the congressional floor. So I doubt that anything that I've said today has blown your mind, but that's kind of how these things work, isn't it? Because it's dull and because we already know all of the facts. None of us particularly want to talk about it, not to mention act on it. Call or write our representatives or march or come all the way down to DC to lobby for water access. But I want you to do something for me. I want you to picture trying to raise a family with lead-laced water in your house, or standing by as your nation breaks a treaty and puts your livelihood at risk. Or even just imagine having to carry all the water that you're going to need for the week home from the grocery store. And this last thing I'm not going to ask you to picture. I'm going to give you the picture. This is the mountainside where melted snow and rain would run down to feed the farmland where I grew up. Now this mountainside is basically a landfill because people have forgotten how precious natural water is, and they've forgotten its place within a very delicate ecosystem that they depend on for survival. Finally, I just want you to picture caring a little bit more about equal access to drinking water. Think of all of the people and the ecosystems that you could help just by keeping water on your radar. I don't think that's such a difficult thing to picture. Do you? My next stop is West Texas, originally just planned on making a pit stop to visit my grandma, but as you will quickly learn on this road trip, there are food stories everywhere.